Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something a lot of you have been asking about, speaking English more fluently,
hmm
and specifically how to, like cut down on those pauses, those little gaps that kind of creep in when you're trying to sound, smooth.
It's funny you should say that because even us native speakers, we don't always sound perfectly fluent either. There are these little tricks and things that we kind of do almost subconsciously to keep those conversations flowing.
Oh, I totally get that. It's like, it's not about being perfect, right?
Yeah.
It's more about that comfortable back and forth that just feels natural.
Uh,
So where do we even start? Like, what causes those pauses in the first place?
well, there are a few common culprits. Think about those times when you hesitate. Are you like second guessing yourself, wondering, did I get the grammar right? Or maybe you just can't, for the life of you, remember the word you need.
Ugh, yeah, I've been there. So it's like my brain just totally blanks and I can't even string a simple sentence together.
You got it. And you know what? A lot of times, that's just plain old lack of confidence. We're unsure of ourselves, so our brains kind of go into overdrive. They
Yeah.
overthink everything, which just makes us pause even more.
It's like hitting the brakes instead of just going with the flow.
Exactly. And sometimes it's not even confidence, it's more like, I don't know, you just can't find the right word in English. Like, you know what you want to say in your native language, but the English equivalent is just gone. Poof.
Totally. And then it's like this mental scramble trying to dig through a dictionary in your head while everyone's just waiting for you to speak.
Yep, that's what we call vocabulary gaps. The smaller your vocabulary, the harder your brain has to work. And that, my friend, leads to more pauses.
Ugh, it's a vicious cycle. I think another thing I do is I try to translate everything word for word from my native language, and it just ends up sounding so clunky and unnatural.
Ah, yes, the translation trap. See, a lot of learners do that. It's like you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. English has its own rhythm, its own flow, and translating word for word kind of messes that up.
It's like trying to force a waltz onto a hip hop beat.
Exactly. Fluency is all about finding that natural flow within the English language itself.
So we've got lack of confidence, we've got vocabulary gaps, and we've got the translation trap.
hmm
Anything else lurking out there,
Yeah.
ready to sabotage our fluency?
Oh, there's one more biggie. Nerves. Like when you're talking to a native speaker and you just feel that pressure and suddenly your mind goes blank.
Don't even get me started. It's like all my English just vanishes into thin air the moment I feel that pressure.
It's the fight or flight response kicking in. Your brain's like, danger,
Yeah.
danger. And it reacts by either making you freeze up or run away.
But here's the thing, even when I'm not feeling super nervous, I still catch myself pausing more than I'd like. It's almost like it's just become a habit.
Oh, yeah, that's common. It's like our brains have gotten so used to pausing, it's our default setting.
So then how do we retrain our brains to, like just speak more fluently?
That is the $1,000,000 question. It can be done, though. It's like any habit, with a little effort and the right approach, we can definitely change it.
Okay, so how do we actually like retrain our brains to speak more fluently? What are those right approaches you're talking about?
Well, one of the most effective things you can do is, well, think in English.
Think in English, but I mean, that seems so obvious, doesn't it?
It does, but trust me, it's a total game changer. See, when you're translating in your head, you're essentially making your brain work twice as hard, which slows you down, and leads to more pauses.
Yeah, I can see that. I do catch myself mentally translating sometimes. So how do we actually like get our brains to just think directly in English?
One simple exercise is, well, you can try narrating your day in English. Just like as you go about your day, describe what you're doing, what you see, in simple sentences like, I'm making breakfast, the coffee smells amazing. Simple stuff like that.
So basically just talking to myself in English, even if it feels a little weird at first.
Exactly. It might feel strange at the beginning, but it really helps your brain get used to processing those thoughts in English. And the best part is you can do it anywhere, anytime.
Okay, I'm definitely going to try that. What else can we do to, smooth out those pauses?
All right, this one might surprise you. Filler words.
Wait, filler words. I thought those are like the enemy of good speech. Aren't we supposed to like avoid them at all costs?
Well, that's a pretty common myth, actually. While too many filler words can be distracting, they actually have a purpose. In natural conversation, they're kind of essential.
Really? I'm curious. Tell me more.
Think about it. Native speakers, we use filler words all the time. Like, actually, they're all over the place.
You're right. I never really noticed it before, but yeah, I can definitely hear those filler words now.
See, And they're not just random sounds. Native speakers, we use them strategically, to keep the conversation moving smoothly. They give us those few extra seconds to think, to gather our thoughts without those awkward silences.
So instead of like freezing up, we can use filler words to kind of bridge the gap and maintain the flow.
Precisely. It's like a little scaffolding, while you're building your thoughts.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, so which filler words are okay to use?
Well, the key is to use them, sparingly and consciously. And well, our good all-purpose ones, can be used to kind of check if the other person is following along, like you're sharing that knowledge and like can be helpful when you're just trying to, find the right words.
So it's not about getting rid of filler words altogether. It's more about using them in a way that sounds, natural.
Exactly. It's finding that balance between sounding fluent and not sounding too rehearsed.
I love that. It takes the pressure off, trying to be perfect. And it lets us, well, be a little imperfect, which makes our speech sound more human. Are there any other, techniques we can use to get that conversational flow?
There's a technique called shadowing, which is really good for fluency.
Shadowing. I've never heard of that one. What is it?
So basically, you listen to a native speaker and you try to imitate them, as closely as you can, almost like you're their shadow. You can use audio recordings, podcasts, videos, all sorts of things.
So we're talking like copying their pronunciation, their intonation, even their pauses and filler words.
Exactly. It's like you're immersing yourself in the rhythms and the nuances of how English is actually spoken.
It sounds fun, but also pretty challenging. It's like training your brain to think and speak more like a native speaker.
And the best part is, it forces you to speak quickly and smoothly without overthinking. You're so busy trying to keep up with the speaker, you don't even have time to hesitate.
That's awesome. I'm definitely adding shadowing to my fluency toolkit. What are some good places to find, materials to shadow?
Podcasts are perfect for this. You can find podcasts on literally anything, and they usually use pretty natural conversational language. Audiobooks are good too, or even TV shows and movies. Just pick something you enjoy listening to, something with clear, engaging speech.
Awesome tip. So we've got thinking in English, using filler words strategically, and shadowing. Anything else we can do to, really polish those pauses and speak with more confidence?
One of the most important things is, well, it's your mindset.
Mindset. How does that tie into fluency?
You see, a lot of learners, they hesitate because they're so afraid of making mistakes. They get so caught up in, perfect grammar, they forget the whole point of communication.
I think we've all been there. That fear of making mistakes can be so crippling.
Tell me about it. But you got to remember, mistakes are just part of the learning process. Everyone makes them, even native speakers. The key is to reframe those mistakes, to see them as, well, as opportunities to learn.
So instead of beating ourselves up for every little error, we should see them as, feedback that can help us get better.
Exactly. And remember, the goal is to be understood, not to sound like a textbook. If people can follow what you're saying, you're doing great, even if you slip up a few times, grammatically speaking, of course.
That's a great reminder. So it's more about like getting your message across clearly and confidently, not about chasing perfection.
You got it. And here's another thing about mindset. Speak with confidence, even if you're not 100% sure of yourself.
That's easier said than done, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
How can you sound confident when you're still, learning the ropes?
You fake it till you make it. Seriously, stand tall, make eye contact, smile, and project your voice. People will focus on what you're saying, not on those tiny little grammar slips.
So it's about owning your message, expressing yourself with conviction, even if you trip over a few words along the way.
Exactly. Remember, fluency isn't just about grammar and vocabulary. It's about connecting with others, sharing your ideas, making those meaningful connections.
This has been so insightful. We've really gotten to the bottom of those pauses, haven't we? We've explored techniques. We've talked about mindset. What else can we do to really boost that fluency?
Well, we can train our brains to think and respond faster, get those mental gears turning a little quicker.
Brain training, huh? I'm all for it. Tell me more.
It's like, mental exercises for an athlete. We got to train our brains to be quick, agile, ready to respond in English.
Okay, I like that. Give me the fluency workout routine. What's the first exercise?
Vocabulary, my friend, vocabulary. The more words and phrases you have at your fingertips, the less your brain struggles to find the right expression.
Right. But just memorizing lists of words feels so boring.
I hear you. Instead of individual words, try learning phrases, chunks of language instead of just opinion. Learn, in my opinion, or I believe that. It makes your speech more automatic.
Ah, so it's like learning prefab building blocks that you can just snap together.
You got it. It's a more efficient way to learn. And speaking of efficiency, active listening is huge.
Wait, listening, isn't that like passive?
Not if you do it right. Active listening means you're really engaged, you're trying to understand, you're even predicting what the speaker will say next.
So it's more about like actively processing what you're hearing, making connections.
Right. The more you do it, the faster your brain gets at decoding English. And that, my friend, helps you speak more fluently because you're better at understanding and responding.
Makes sense. So where do I find good stuff to actively listen to?
Podcasts, man, podcasts. Pick a topic you love, really focus on the content, try to summarize the main points in your head, predict what's coming next. Movies, TV shows, even just conversations with friends, it all counts.
Okay, so we're building vocabulary, training our brains to think in English, actively listening. It's like a whole body fluency workout. What else have we got?
All right, this one's fun. Conversation anticipation.
Conversation anticipation. What's that, like a mind reading game?
Kind of. You're trying to guess what'll be said next in a conversation. You can do it while watching a movie, listening to a podcast, even just chatting with someone. It's like fill in the blank, but with spoken English.
So it's all about training your brain to think ahead, anticipate the flow of the conversation.
You got it. And the more you do it, the faster your brain gets, which means, you guessed it, more fluent speech.
I like it. Keeps you on your toes.
Right.
Okay, last exercise. Hit me with it.
Imitation. Find a native speaker you admire, someone whose speaking style you dig, maybe from a show you watch or a podcast you listen to, and just try to imitate them. Pronunciation, intonation, even their little pauses and, filler words.
Sounds like becoming a language chameleon, trying on different styles.
Exactly. Imitation is one of the most powerful ways we learn language. The more you expose yourself to natural English, the more your brain absorbs those rhythms and patterns.
This has been an amazing deep dive. Seriously. We've gone from like the science of pauses to practical techniques to these awesome brain exercises. What's the one thing you want listeners to walk away with?
Fluency is a journey, not a destination, my friend. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Practice, practice, practice. And above all, speak with confidence. The more you use your English, the more natural it'll feel.
Such great advice. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today. And to all our listeners, remember, you have the power to speak English fluently. Pick one of these techniques, one exercise, and just start practicing. You'll be amazed at how far you can go. Until next time, happy speaking.